Welcome back to West Coast Media Solutions. I know it's been a while since I've made any videos or anything like that. Just been doing life, doing me. But at any rate, I wanted to throw my opinion and perspective into the ring in regards to the Supreme Court ending affirmative action in college admissions, because I am a college graduate who were a participant in affirmative action. That's how that helped me get into for undergrad many moons ago. Um, and so I wanted to throw my hat in the ring. But with that being said, I wanted to play this video here, um, because I want people to hear what some Asian Americans are saying in regards to their opinion and perspective on affirmative action, the ending of affirmative action, and then I will give my commentary throughout the video, basically. So let's see here. Let's see here. Okay. All right, that's what I want to do there. All right, so here we go.
And this will be controversial, but I hope you'll hear me to the end. I attended Harvard twice for undergrad and for business school, and I fully support affirmative action. And
Hello, guys, and welcome back to my channel. So, guys, we are still at it, guys. The Supreme Court ruling concerning the affirmative action, guys. We have some Asian American people who think that, dang.
So I'm gonna kind of skip past her commentary, because based on her accent, it doesn't. I don't get the impression that she actually lives in the United States. This YouTuber, but I liked the perspectives of the videos from the various Asian Americans who've voiced their opinions about affirmative action. Um, this YouTuber, she is basically giving her opinion about it, and that's where I'm going to come in, because I am an American and I was a product of affirmative action. So I'm just going to skip past what she is saying.
You think this will backfire one?
need to address this false narrative that Asians don't want affirmative action. I resent my race being hijacked to make a case for ending diversity. The Asian American admissions experience has been a primary focus of the current Supreme Court lawsuit, which I really resent because it's been orchestrated by Edward Bloom, a white man who has a track record of wanting to end diversity and inclusion in other areas of American life as well. He initially took a white plaintiff before to the Supreme Court against the University of Texas and failed. And so he decided he needed Asian plaintiffs, and so he advertised for them. And now Asian Americans are being used as a wedge against other communities of color. The Harvard Asian American Association and the Asian Alumni Association are both pro-affirmative action. Harvard cannot create a campus that is diverse enough to fulfill its educational mission without considering race. It's just one factor among many factors. I mean, we've seen massive declines in minority admissions at universities when affirmative action is eliminated. And higher education in these institutions are pipelines to leadership in our society, a society that's still, unfortunately, far from equal and just, one that still has a lot of work to do to close racial disparities and combat systemic racism, one that all of that became painfully clear for this nation with the Black Lives Matter movement. There are racial disparities in education going back centuries in this country. And today, if you're Black, you're more likely to be in an under-resourced school, but also more likely to be viewed as having less academic potential. I mean, yes, in an ideal world, race wouldn't be considered in admissions because in that ideal world, everyone would have access to the same kinds of resources and there'd be no systemic racism. But that is unfortunately not the world yet that we live in today. So what can we do now? I mean, it unfortunately does seem inevitable that affirmative action will be struck down this year. So what's the point of all of this? For one, I think it's important for Asian Americans to speak out versus just simply being used as a pawn in a political battle. I'm also surprised that more people generally aren't speaking out, again, given higher education's then trickle-on impact on future employment opportunities, income potential, leadership roles. This also shows how much voting matters. Please vote in the midterms next week. Early voting has started. Lawmakers have the power to reverse things like the impact of the Supreme Court decision on affirmative action or Roe v. Wade.
Okay, so I agree with everything she said, and except for the talk about voting, but that's a whole nother topic for another video. But at any rate, she's correct. All this is gonna do, or all the that they're attempting to try to do with this, is cause even more friction and tension between my community and the Asian community, because affirmative action has actually helped in college admissions everybody, including Asians, and has actually helped more Caucasian women than out of any of us. It's helped more of Caucasian women than it has helped my community, the Asian community, Native American community, and so on and so forth. When it was intended, it was supposed to be to more or less help my community. Why? Because historically, my community has been systematically discriminated against. Okay. So that was the reason for them implementing affirmative action to begin with, is because of slavery, and Jim Crow laws. Jim Crow laws were in effect for many years. Okay. And the Jim Crow laws were only targeted to American descendants of slavery or foundational Black Americans. Okay. So that is the reason for affirmative action. Now, the thing that people seem to, that want to make a deal out of it and make it seem like it somehow reversed discrimination, or they're seeming to forget that, yes, while affirmative action has helped or helps an individual be considered for college admissions, it does not do the work for you. Yes, I got into UC Davis because of affirmative action, because it looked at me as a whole person and not just grades and test scores. But it did not do the work for me. It did not attend classes for me. And I graduated from high school in 1990. So this was before the internet and cell phones and all of that. So college used to be a lot harder, much harder than it is today. College now, today, these days, in my opinion, is easy in comparison to when I went to school in the 1990s. Because, like I said, we did not have internet. We did not have a smartphone. We didn't have personal computers and laptops and stuff like that. So you had to literally go to the library, physically go to the library, physically go to the computer lab on campus, and type up your papers and do your research at the library using the card catalog, okay? The Dewey Decimal System. It could take you hours just to try to research and find reference materials and things like that to use to formulate your opinions and write your papers with. I mean, you literally had to flip through newspapers, periodicals, magazines, microfiche, which was a little almost looked like transparency, floppy disk sort of, and you literally had to insert that into a machine and then look through the machine to review the information that was on that microfiche card. Young folks today, they don't know anything about that. And I'm talking about your generation Z, the kids that are born in the 2000s. They know nothing about the Dewey Decimal System, microfiche, periodicals, and things of that nature. It was extremely difficult to get through college back in my day. You didn't have the ability to just easily get information about stuff, unless you had a library card. And even then, it was not a walk in the park to try to go into a library and try to find the information that you're looking for. So it helped me get in, but it did not help me stay, and it certainly did not help me obtain my degrees that you see. Well, you guys can't see them. Let's see if I turn my computer this way, that you can see on my wall. Trust and believe me, that was all me, and it was extremely difficult and challenging. The other thing about it is that back when I was in high school, my high school, which was over 1,500 kids, I graduated with a class of almost 600 kids, and we had 2 books in our resource center that were the scholarship books. Those books were extremely thick, and there was only 2 of them. You could not even check those books out. You had to sign up to go to the resource center to look at the book, and you only got about 45 minutes to look at those books and try to write down as much information as you could about different scholarships in a 45-minute time span. So this idea of that somehow affirmative action just made it super easy for Black folks to get in, and other marginalized groups or unqualified people, is complete hogwash. It was a lot of steps you had to go through, and everybody knows that, or you should know that, the standardized testing is extremely biased, and they cost money, which me growing up poor did not have. The kids that parents, were well off, or at least middle upper class or whatever, they could afford to pay for their kids to take prep courses. I didn't even know anything about that there was any such thing as prep courses. I didn't even know that you had to take entrance exams like the SAT and ACT until the last minute. When I found out that you had to take those tests, they were offering the last basically chance to take the test and get your scores back in time enough to be able to apply for school. So I basically was able to get a waiver, a voucher to take the test, because it costs money to take those tests. And I found out, I don't even remember how I even found out about the waiver, but somehow I found out about that they were giving a one-time waiver. And so I rushed and went and got the waiver. And then I rushed and went and signed up to take the test. I went in there cold, knowing no preparation, knowing nothing about the test. I scored horribly. But the things that I did have in my favor was that I was well-rounded. I did have good grades. I was involved in one of the clubs on campus. I was an athlete. I ran track for 4 years. I did work part-time after school and on the weekends. Matter of fact, I started working at the age of 13. I also was very involved in my church. So I had a lot of community service, including cooking breakfast for the homeless on Saturday mornings, reading and singing to the elderly in convalescent homes, and things of that nature. And so I had all of those things going for me. I had letters of recommendations from teachers and my employers, and things of that nature. And I had disadvantages in terms of domestic violence, drug addiction, mass incarceration, and all of that in my family. So, and I talked about all of that in my essay. And they took all of that into consideration and admitted me. But a lot of the kids that get admitted into college, a lot of them do not graduate. A lot of them do not finish. because there's a lot of, at least back then, there was a lot of challenges that existed that, made it very, very difficult. And a lot of times kids coming from disadvantaged backgrounds did not have the support at home. I had to work while I was in college, but I couldn't work more than about 15, 20 hours a week and still try to get decent grades, especially when you go to a UC, University of California school. A lot of the UCs are on the quarter system. The coursework moves a lot faster. It's a lot harder. It's a lot more challenging than your universities and colleges that are on a semester. Because there's 2 semesters in a year. There's 4 quarters in a year. So every quarter at UC Davis, you're taking all new classes. So when you're on the quarter system, if you miss a week of school for whatever reason, or a week of classes, that's equivalent to like missing a whole month when you're on the semester system, or really kind of missing 2 or 3 months when you're on the semester system. That's how fast the coursework is moving along. Okay, so yes, affirmative action, it helps you get in, but it does not guarantee you that you're going to be able to stay, that you're going to be able to rise up to the occasion and be able to keep up with the coursework. Okay, so that's basically my take on it. I think that this whole thing, and a lot of the Asian Americans that I've seen that have done videos on TikTok, they have said that they were for affirmative action, but of course, obviously, there are those few that wanted it gone because somehow they think that it's going to help them. It's actually going to backfire on them. But of course, that's just my opinion. It remains to be seen. But in my opinion, I think it's going to backfire. And like I said, it did not take away spots from other folks. It just increased the chances and attempted to level the playing field for kids like me who wouldn't have stood a chance otherwise because of all of the issues and things that I went through and was going through at that time as a kid growing up. So that's my take. That's my perspective. But let's see, what this lady has to say, who is actually a attorney.
The irony is there are so many things that I would remain ignorant to and therefore not talk about if it wasn't for stupid comments like this that cause me to constantly check and recheck the information that I base my opinions on. With respect to affirmative action and Harvard, during their last admission cycle, Harvard had 2,000 available seats, keeping in mind that nearly 40% of their seats go to legacy admissions. So Harvard had 1,200 seats available to applicants. Among their applicants, 8,000 had a perfect GPA, 3,400 had a perfect SAT math score, and 2,700 had a perfect SAT verbal score. So even if Harvard prioritized GPA and test scores only, they would still be rejecting a majority of their applicants who have perfect GPA and test scores. Now, Harvard employs a holistic approach to a race plus system, which means that if Harvard is going to take into consideration the race of an applicant, they only do so if it enhances the applicant's chances of getting in. They do not do it in a way that harms an applicant's chances. So that means that even the Asian American applicants who were rated low in the holistic approach on factors such as likability, kindness, and courage, it just means that ultimately Harvard did not take their race into consideration and treated them the same as white applicants. Because Harvard only takes race into consideration when it helps, they do not penalize anybody on the basis of race. Now, Georgetown did a study which did show if there was no affirmative action and colleges only prioritized test scores, that Asian American enrollment in colleges would increase slightly. However, the 21% of Asian Americans who are currently admitted through the holistic approach to affirmative action would lose their seats, and those tend to be Asian American applicants who come from lower income families. So when Asian Americans oppose affirmative action, what they are advocating for is for more privileged Asian Americans to replace less privileged Asian Americans in college.
Okay, so just to add on that, guys, removing racial consideration doesn't level the playing field. You agree with
And that I agree with that. It does not. It's not going to level the playing field by removing affirmative action. And like she said, just because you had, they had affirmative action and they did a study to see, well, with Georgetown University, if they had removed affirmative action, how that would impact Asians, for instance. Yeah, it would increase slightly for those Asian Americans who are parents have money or whatever, but then it would decrease their numbers on those darker complected Asian Americans like Vietnamese, Laotians, Filipinos, who parents didn't have money. So it would actually hurt them. And the real problem isn't affirmative action. It is the legacy emissions. Legacy meaning those kids who come from privileged backgrounds, whose parents or some family member or whatever went to that particular university, or their parents have money and they've been providing significant donations to that particular college. And so that's how they get in. They call those emissions legacy emissions. Those by far take a bigger slice of the pie than any other group of admissions. And so the real enemy, I guess, so to speak, is the legacy. But of course, they never really address the real problem. It's always somebody is always willing to be used as a pawn to keep the division going. Because that's really all this kid that participated and was the face of this lawsuit with this white attorney. That's all he did, was he allowed himself to be a pawn, because he's not going to get the type of results that he thought that he was going to get. And they tried this particular attorney that brought this suit. He tried this crap before with a white kid a couple of years ago. I remember seeing this one white girl, and I can't remember what school it was that she didn't get into, and she swore by God it was because she was denied because her spot was given to, a Black person or another minority or whatever. And as it turned out, no, that was not the case. The reason why she didn't get in is because her test scores and grades and stuff like that were not up to par. And I guess, I don't remember if she was had any other extenuating factors, or if she, was a well-rounded student, participated in sports and clubs, community service and all that. I don't recall that if she did or not. I kind of think that she didn't. But anyways, that suit got thrown out. And so then this attorney, he went back to the drawing board and figured out, oh, okay, if I get another minority group, if I get a minority group to wage this lawsuit with, then it'll fare out better, because then they can't say that it's not discriminating because it's another minority group, and then they get all of us fighting, against each other or whatever. My feeling is this, and if I could have went to one, I would have, but I'm a California native, and so I didn't have access to go to a HBCU. But had I lived in the South, I would have went to a HBCU or had, we had the internet and all of the things that we have now. If we would have had those back then in the 90s, and I would have had access to those things, I would have applied and went to a HBCU. So that's my opinion. My solution is that for my community, instead of continuing to try to fight and beg these people to get into their schools, when our kids get mistreated at their schools anyways, a lot of the times. So to hell with their schools, go to a HBCU. They've got some excellent HBCUs here in the South. I'm in the South now. They got some excellent schools here. Our kids need to start going there. And alumni of HBCUs, that you need to start supporting your universities. One of my first jobs when I went to UC Davis was as a customer service rep in a call center for UC Davis Annual Fund, which meant that we telemarketed and we called on UC Davis alumni and got them to donate and contribute to the annual fund. The annual fund helped with providing scholarships and different things like that. That's what, if HBCUs do not have an annual fund program, they need to get one, and they need to pay the kids that do that job. They need to pay them well. At the time, they paid us at UC Davis Annual Fund, I think it was like $10, $11 an hour. And this was in 1990. So that was excellent, excellent money for a student, but even just for anybody, because, minimum wage was like $5 something an hour. So to be getting, $10, $11 an hour in 1990, 1991 was awesome. That's what they need to do with the HBCUs. HBCU graduates, you guys need to start contributing, even if it's only, even if you can only afford 25 or $50 a month. You need to start doing that and supporting your alma mater. If you want your alma mater to continue to thrive and stuff like that, then you guys need to start doing that. But that's what I would say is the solution. If you want your kids to go to college and you don't want to have to deal with these shenanigans with these white institutions, then encourage your kids to go to a HBCU. That's what I say. Screw trying to fight these folks over getting into their schools. It's the hell with that. And really, at the end of the day, I can tell you, I've worked a lot of different jobs, several different industries. And I could tell you right now that most employers, they could care less about what school you went to. They don't even really too much care. In a lot of instances, what your degree is even in. It depends on the particular job. But they definitely don't really care about what school you went to. A lot of those kids that do manage to go to an Ivy League school, they're there at that Ivy League school because of their connections or their parents' connections as a legacy admission. And it doesn't really matter what their grades look like or whatever, because they're already connected. They're already going to be guaranteed. They've already been guaranteed, a high paying job or whatever. If their parents are into politics, they already have a path to go into politics as well. So, in most cases, it doesn't really matter what school you went to. You may luck up and do an interview with a company or a manager or whatever who happened to go to your same university or college. But the likelihood of that is, slim a lot of times. I tell you what, I got more interviews and more interest by them seeing that I did my internship when I was in college at the White House than anything else. When they saw that, even though I may not have necessarily gotten the job, but just having that on my resume was a huge talking point. And I'm so thankful that my guidance counselor at UC Davis, Sandra McDonald, which I hope, hey, Sandra, I hope you're still out there. You're still alive and doing your thing. But I was so glad that she encouraged me to apply for that internship at the White House at the time, because at first I wasn't going to, and she encouraged me to do it, and for good reason. But like I said, it don't really matter what school you went to, where your degree is from. Of course, you want it to be accredited, because at the end of the day, unless you are your parents are well connected, to a Fortune 500 company CEO or whatever, or a senator or congressman or something like that, you're more likely you're not going to have those connections. So you're not really in the club anyways. So go to HBC or do your stuff online. There's tons of schools, accredited programs or whatever that you can do online, and you ain't even got to deal with none of the foolishness, and you can save a whole lot of money at the end of the day. So anyways, that's my take, guys. But let me know what you think in the comments section. I love to hear you guys' opinion about it. And until next time, you guys have an awesome rest of the week. And yeah, until the next hot topic.